Part 25. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 241. The four of them, Sun Dehuo, glanced at each other, and they were all suppressing laughter. Wang Ling was calm, returned the salute, and then said with a smile, "Don't be so nervous. They are all members of my army, and they are also my colleagues and friends. They are also members of my family. Oh, sirs, stop standing around, come on, sit down." He said he was not nervous, but facing these people whose military ranks were all above him, Lu Hui was still a little embarrassed. He quickly moved a few chairs for Wang Ling and others to sit down, and then poured 5 tea jars of hot water himself. Then Lu Hui suppressed his excitement and praised, "Brother Ling, you are really a god. When you left here last time, you seemed to be a great sergeant, right? It's only been so long now, and you are already a captain. That's it, don't you see who our captain is? With his crazy ideas and combat power, it would be a disaster for the Allied forces to have him as an opponent for 8 lifetimes." Wang Ling didn't have time to speak, but he was a charlatan. The flattery made Wang Ling laugh and cry for a while. When he spoke, he had a completely playful tone and no airs at all. In addition, Wang Ling himself was a veteran member here. Lu Hui somewhat relieved his embarrassment and asked with a smile, "What about Brother Ling, are you coming back this time to visit us old guys?" Wang Ling nodded, "Yes, the battle situation there has been calmed down, and we have a week's rest for the time being. When we get to the decisive battlefield, we don't know when we can come back, so we made an impromptu decision to bring some of my old friends back to watch. Look, I didn't bother you, did I? How could it be possible? Our commander, Luo Qiang, is only a lieutenant. You are all senior officials here. It's great to be here." Lu Hui patted the horse happily. Wang Ling smiled, shook his head, and asked, "How's it going? Are there any changes in our training base recently?" Before Lu Hui answered this question, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, then quickly returned to normal, and replied, "What changes can there be? It's just a change in personnel. The old batch of trainers all went to the battlefield with police dogs. What about your situation? Among the old guys, only Fat Cow is left working here, and the rest are all gone." "Oh, that's right, Fat Cow." Thinking of this, Lu Hui hurried out, called a guard, and gave instructions, seemingly to call the Fat Cow. After returning to the office, Lu Hui explained, Fat Niu was a blessing in disguise. He was bitten by the bull demon and became lame. He was spared the cruelty on the battlefield. Now he is here to accompany the bull demon every day. He is quite happy. Speaking of the bull demon, Wang Ling snickered a little. This police dog was just like the Fat Cow, a bit intimidating. The Fat Cow only wore a few less layers of armor, but now it is lame. However, when it comes to fat cows, Wang Ling naturally thinks of Xiao He. Just as he was about to ask, a greeting suddenly came from outside the office. "Oh, I'm late. I'm late. You guys are really, too. You came all the way here and you didn't even say hello. I'm not prepared at all." As soon as he finished speaking, a burly middle-aged man walked into the office. He was the person in charge and commander of the police dog training base, Lieutenant Luo Qiang. Among the 5 Wang Lings, Sun Dehuo and Wang Ling were both above him in military rank. When he came to this training base, Luo Qiang did not dare to assert his identity. Not long ago, after the guard led Wang Ling and the others, he did not immediately he went back to stand guard, but specifically went to inform Lieutenant Luo Qiang. After learning the news, Lieutenant Luo Qiang quickly put down what he was doing and rushed over. Although Wang Ling is much younger than Luo Qiang, after all, the military rank is here, Luo Qiang must be polite, and it is a standard military salute after entering. Wang Ling had long been accustomed to the gesture of military salute. He returned the salute and then responded with a smile, on a whim, I just wanted to come back and see how Brother Lugo is doing lately. Haha, it's okay. What can happen to the police dog training base? It's you. The last time I saw you, you were still a non-commissioned officer. Now you are good. The military rank is above mine, tut Luo Jiang said with a smile. They are both lieutenants. Although Wang Ling's military rank is 2 levels higher than his, after all, he was once his subordinate, so Luo Jiang is not too restrictive. After not seeing each other for a long time, the two sides naturally exchanged pleasantries again. After this continued for a while, a limping shadow finally appeared outside, and it turned out to be a fat cow. After not seeing each other for a few months, this fat cow has changed quite a lot. It seems that it is because of his lame leg. His expression is a little less aggressive and arrogant, and a little more honest, and in his eyes, there is still a little dejection and loneliness. He was obviously not a person who would settle for enjoyment, but the reality was too cruel, or the bull demon was too cruel, so he had to stay here, unable to lead the bull demon to the battlefield to make contributions. A position that was enviable to others was a helpless one for him. When he came to the office and saw that the door was still open, Fei Niu greeted him in a cheerful voice, Brother Lu, why are you calling me here in such a hurry? At this point, Fei Niu had already entered the office, and when he saw Wang Ling at first sight, he was stunned. It lasted for a full 5 seconds before Fat Niu regained his composure. He didn't even bother to salute, and stepped forward to give Wang Ling a bear hug. Brother Ling, haha, Brother Ling. I didn't expect you to be here. Wang Ling patted Fei Niu on the back, pushed him away gently, and said with a smile, we haven't seen each other for so long, come and see how you are doing. By the way, where is Xiao He? I've been doing this for a while. Is he obedient? Take him out and see if he recognizes me, my old friend. The original atmosphere was quite lively. These old guys met, talked, and laughed, and even gave bear hugs. However, after Wang Ling said these words, the atmosphere at the scene suddenly took a 180-degree turn. Whether it was Lieutenant Luo Jiang or Sergeant Lu Hui, their brows jumped, their lips pursed, and their expressions were sad. Turned his head slightly and looked away from Wang Ling. Fei Niu's performance was even more exciting. When he heard Xiao He, he was shocked. Then, the dignified 7-foot-tall man gradually choked up, and later even cried, wow, Brother Ling, I'm sorry for you. When Wang Ling heard this, his heart felt as if someone had pinched him hard. A very bad feeling came into his heart and turned into anger. He grabbed the collar of the fat cow with both hands. He couldn't control it in his excitement. With such force, he lifted up the whole fat cow. What's going on? Tell me what the hell you're saying clearly, what's wrong with Xiao He? The words have been spoken for this reason, and Wang Ling has also been found. What should be faced will eventually have to be faced. Fat Niu didn't care what his condition was, and just answered with a cry, Xiao He is dead. I don't know if any readers like Xia He, the police dog anyway. I like it very much every time I see the scene on the TV news when the trainer and the police dog are separated. I can't control it and shed tears. However, in my novels, I don't like pure tragedy, so I won't spoil it here. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 242. Dead, dead, dead. This news was like a thunderbolt from the blue to Wang Ling, causing him to feel in a daze. In the world of Red Alert, this is not the first time that he has faced the death of his relatives and friends. The last time he learned that his most respected instructor died in battle, Wang Ling had already turned crazy and regarded Agent Tanya as his #1 enemy for revenge. Not long ago, I saw Agent Tanya escaping, and I was even upset to the point of resisting the light tank with my body. And now, facing Xiao He's death notice, Wang Ling was even more confused. The police dog who protected the food and the owner, the innocent and simple Xiao He, the old man who still looked after Wang Ling even though he was exhausted, died like this. In a daze, Wang Ling's eyes quickly became moist, but after he came back to his senses, Wang Ling immediately became angry. He pulled away and punched the fat cow in the face, knocking the fat cow away. 4 or 5 meters away, he cursed, "You bastard! What did I tell you before I left? I entrusted Xiao He to you, and it's only been a few months, but you told me that Xiao He is dead already." After being strengthened at the intermediate level, Wang Ling's unreserved punch could even shake a tank. He had tried his best to gather the power of this punch, but he couldn't control it well despite being furious. Fat Niu was hit hard by this blow, and his face it immediately became bruised, and even gradually began to swell. However, Fei Niu had no intention of resisting at all, and was still choking, "Brother Ling. I'm sorry for you." A 7-foot man was crying without any image. Regarding this matter, Fei Niu was also full of shame in his heart. Cry, 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 but after Wang Ling heard the cry, he couldn't help but want to continue to fight. Crying, "Can you make Xiao He cry back?" But there is a saying that is true, the authorities are blind to the onlookers. Wang Ling was furious and even lost his mind. However, Sun Dehu and the 4 of them were still conscious and hurried up to stop Wang Ling. "Captain, don't be so impulsive." Not only the 4 of them, but also Luo Qiang and Lu Hui couldn't stand it anymore. Luo Qiang immediately joined the blocking team. However, these 5 people obviously still underestimated Wang Ling's strength. With a wave of his hand, all 5 people were thrown away. 2 of them even bumped into tables and chairs, letting out a painful groan. Seeing that Wang Ling couldn't be stopped by taking action, Lu Hui simply stood in front of Fei Niu and bravely shouted, "Brother Ling, you can't blame a good person. I really don't blame Fei Niu for this. Those days here, Fat Cow is better to Xiao He than the bull demon is to him, but Xiao He." Wang Ling was indeed so sad and angry that he lost control, but when it came to Xiao he still managed to endure it. He stared at Lu Hui and asked, "What's going on?" Seeing that Wang Ling was stopped, Lu Hui quickly said, "Isn't it because of the order you gave when you left? The police dog gets along with the trainer day and night. It is very smart and highly dependent. After you left, Xiao He thought he would never see you again. It's your turn. Do you know that this is more difficult for the police dog than killing it? As a result, it remembered your last order and kept guarding the gate of the base, squatting there and watching. Looking in the direction you left, I won't eat or sleep." Wang Ling was finally speechless after hearing this past incident, but the tears accumulated in his eyes couldn't bear it and fell down. But Lu Hui continued, "Fat Cow also wants to take it back, but your little black one is determined to squat there, as if you can come back by doing this, and it won't listen no matter how you call it doesn't move. Feed it the food it likes, but it's all brought to its mouth. It just refuses to open its mouth, as if it's waiting for your order. Forcibly carry it back to the kennel." This guy seems to be it was like crazy, biting the fat cow's arm several times. The most important thing is that even if it was locked in the kennel, in the blink of an eye it would start slamming into the door again, with a completely life-threatening attitude. The fat cow was afraid that it would cause trouble, and after trying it a few times, he didn't dare to close it again. At this point, let alone Wang Ling, even Sun Dehu and the others who had just climbed up had their eye circles red, and even Erlu was choking up. "Xiao He, are you stupid?" "Yeah, it's stupider than any police dog." Lu Hui sighed and continued, "During that time, Xiao He squatted at the base gate day and night, and Fei Niu spared no effort to accompany him and talk to him every day. Even the bull demon he was left out. However, even so, Xiao He still refused to eat a little bit of food, didn't take a sip of water, couldn't move, or slept, for 7 days in a row. At this point, Lu Hui became excited, with tears in his eyes. 7 days. No food, no drink, no sleep, 7 whole days. If it were us, we wouldn't be able to bear it. It's just seeking death, but that's exactly what Xiao He is doing. After a week, I went to visit with Fei Niu that morning, but that day, Xiao He, who had been squatting for a whole week, did not continue squatting, but fell to the ground. We quickly went up to check. Suddenly, Xiao He was still alive, but his vital signs were very weak. We quickly asked the veterinarian to treat him, but by that time Xiao He could no longer hold on. In the end, a large number of us could only watch him helplessly. Look at it little by little and close your eyes. Whoa whoa whoa. After restoring the incident, Fei Niu even cried out, "Brother Lingling, I'm sorry for you, I didn't take good care of Xiao He. In the past few months, I often dreamed about Xiao He closing his eyes. The picture when I close my eyes, every time, I wake up crying. Ugh. In fact, not only Fatty Cow, but also all the officers, soldiers, trainers, veterinarians, and even many police dogs at the scene were in tears when they witnessed Xiao He's death. Born in troubled times, during the war for hegemony, police dogs and trainers usually go to the battlefield together in the police dog training base. When they are rarely separated, Wang Ling's encounter is naturally quite rare, but this situation still makes the group. When people saw it, many people burst into tears. Xiao He, this seemingly inconspicuous police dog, turned out to be so stubborn that he spent his life executing a very ridiculous order, waiting for a breeder who didn't know if he would come back. In a person's life, there may be countless pets, countless friends, and endless scenery, but in the life of a police dog, there is only one breeder. All the scenes in life, whether it is happiness, sadness, or even its survival, its meaning also revolves around its keepers. But if the keeper suddenly leaves, then its life will lose its color, and the sky will also lose its color. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 243. After telling Xiao He's story, Lu Hui was already in tears, and his mind seemed to be filled with Xiao He's extremely longing eyes before he died. Not only him, but Sun Dehu and the other 4 were also choked with sobs. They had never come into contact with police dogs, but just by hearing Xiao He's story, the chord in their hearts had been touched. Facing the cruelty of the battlefield, they could put life and death aside, but now, they burst into tears. When Wang Ling heard these things, he didn't say a word, but the tears in his eyes seemed to be endless. He shed tears first when he wanted to speak. At this time, silence was better than sound. Wow! As for Fat Niu, he didn't care at all how much his face hurt. He was just crying, "Brother Lingling, please beat me to death. I am useless. I failed to take good care of Xiao He." Wow! This cry also woke Wang Ling up. His eyes that were originally unfocused refocused and looked at the fat cow, but there was no longer the anger before, and then he slowly walked towards Fatten the cow. Lu Hui noticed Wang Ling's change and did not stop him this time. He took the initiative to move aside and let the fat cow out. Wang Ling slowly came to the fat cow. Without saying anything, he just extended his hand to the fat cow. But Fei Niu was stunned for a moment. He hesitated for a long time before he took his hand and was pulled up by Wang Ling. Afterwards, Wang Ling hugged Fei Niu directly, and finally choked up in his voice, I'm sorry. Fei Niu, Xiao He." Fei Niu also trembled when he heard it, but did not make any move. He just let Wang Ling hold him and choked for a long time. After he gradually controlled his emotions, Lu Hui said, "In the training base, occasionally there will be some police dogs will die, and we will bury these dead police dogs in the cemetery outside the base. Xiao Hei's body is also there, and Fei Niu personally dug his grave and erected a tombstone. After hearing the news, Wang Ling took a deep breath, let go of his hand, wiped his tears, and said solemnly, "Fat Niu, thank you. I wrongly blamed you before, I'm sorry." Fat Niu quickly shook his head, but couldn't speak at all. "Can you take me to see it?" Wang Ling asked. Although he had lived here for several months, he had never heard of the police dog cemetery, and naturally he had never been to it. Fei Niu nodded and followed Lieutenant Luo Qiang and Lu Hui out of the office. Wang Ling was in a daze for a moment and followed behind, followed by Sun Dehu and 4 others. The police dog cemetery is a little far away from the training base. It took the group nearly half an hour to reach their destination. Here is a specially opened open space at the foot of a hill, on the other side of the forest. Looking around, there are already more than 20 graves in this open space, but most of them are old and very dry. Among them, there is a tomb in the front, which is obviously different from the other tombs. Judging from the color, it seems that it was just erected in the past few months. Even the color of the tombstone is darker than that of the other tombs. Come to think of it, this one is Xiao Hei's grave. Wang Ling didn't use the fat cow to lead the way anymore, and walked forward minding his own business. Behind him, Sun Dehu and others wanted to go over and have a look, but Lu Hui stopped him with his hand and shook his head at them. The 4 of them, Sun Dehu, glanced at each other and stayed cooperatively. They just looked at Wang Ling with a hint of unbearability in their eyes. The tombstone was indeed Xiao Hei's. Wang Ling walked forward slowly and saw 2 obvious large characters engraved on the tombstone, Xiao Hei. After confirming the target, Wang Ling was stunned and his body was trembling slightly. Just when Sun Dehu and others thought that Wang Ling would cry for a while, Wang Ling sat down directly in front of the tombstone and stared at the tombstone blankly. He was in a daze, and his expression was a little dazed. Rubbing the 2 engraved characters Xiao Hei in front of him, Wang Ling couldn't help but recall everything he had with Xiao Hei back then. Thinking back to the first time they met, Xiao Hei, that bastard, didn't give him any face. He had to use food to tempt him, and even bit him while taking a shower. Then I remembered that after training, I gradually got on the right track. Xiao Hei was also very smart and could learn many commands almost instantly. Then I think back to when I was training Xiao Hei to fight, 1 person and 1 dog got into a fight in the kennel. Thinking back to the race between 1 person and 1 dog, after Wang Ling lay down tiredly, Xiao Hei was also exhausted, but he couldn't take a rest. He had to make sure Wang Ling was safe before he fell down. Finally, I remembered that at the moment of farewell, Xiao Hei had a telepathic feeling and knew that Wang Ling was leaving, so he broke into the kennel and came to stop him. In the end, he still failed to stop Wang Ling and had to use his life as a police dog. Carry out Wang Ling's last order and shed sad tears. Scenes from the past linger in my mind and cannot be forgotten, but when I look back, everything in the past has become history. My former partner Xiao Hei is now buried deep in the grave, leaving only this tombstone as a witness. Thinking back and thinking about it, the sadness of separation became stronger and stronger. Finally, Wang Ling couldn't bear it anymore and started to choke again. "Xiao Hei, you humming bastard, why are you so stupid? It's not like I won't come back. What do you want to do if you don't eat, drink or sleep? I have never had a dog in my life. The first and only one is you. Why the hell are you so stupid and just leave? Are my orders that important? I have to execute them with my life. You are sincerely seeking death. What I regret most is that I didn't teach you a lesson before I left. Why do you worry about me so much? Have you had enough of your favorite jerky? Have you seen this colorful world before you leave?" Wow! The more he talked, the more excited he became. In the end, Wang Ling couldn't finish a lot of words, so he couldn't control his emotions anymore and burst into tears. Woof woof woof. Next to his ears, Xiao Hei's familiar cry seemed to be heard again. Deep in his mind, Xiao Hei's innocent and cute appearance emerged. His long tongue stuck out, seeming to be having fun with Wang Ling, and seemed to be telling him something. It's missing. But as soon as this picture appeared, it suddenly drifted away, became darker, and finally disappeared, becoming a cold tomb in front of us. Wow! Wang Ling stretched out his hand to grab it, but only caught the cold tombstone. The stiffness that he touched made his heart ache. Men don't shed tears easily, but they have not reached the point of sadness. Wang Ling has rarely cried since he was a child, and it is even rarer to cry loudly, but now, he is crying loudly. Although the red alert world is virtual, everything here is too real. Wang Ling would often think of this heartless little guy on the battlefield. It was rare to come back to visit him, but in the end he only saw such a grave. How could Wang Ling accept this? Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 244. Wow! Ah! Wang Ling was still crying. At the beginning, when he faced the devilish military training with a fragile physique, he did not cry even when he was exhausted and collapsed. When he joined the battlefield as a conscript and personally faced sniper attacks and tank bombings, he did not cry. The battlefield escalated, and he did not cry when faced with the attack of large Allied forces, or even the bombardment of light tanks. But now, he has put down all the strength and stubbornness in the past, abandoned them all, and cried loudly, with a hoarse voice and tears streaming down his face. He cried so helplessly that it made those who heard it sad and those who heard it shed tears. Why? Outside the police dog cemetery, Lieutenant Luo Qiang wiped away his tears and sighed, seemingly expressing his helplessness. Sun Dehua didn't choke anymore, but his eyes were filled with tears. He looked at Wang Ling for a long time, and then he couldn't bear to turn his head away. Hey, buddy, do you have a cigarette? Lieutenant Luo Qiang calmly took out a box of ancient cigarettes and handed one to Sun Dehua. On the side, Erlu, who was choking, quickly grabbed one, lit it with fire, and took a deep breath. Sun Dehua was stunned. You idiot, don't you know how to smoke? Cough cough cough. As soon as he finished speaking, the two donkeys revealed their true colors, choking on the smoke and coughing. But he didn't take it seriously. He wiped his tears and said, "Isn't it going to stop smoking? I feel uncomfortable. I just want to give it a try." Beside him, Li Tong lowered his head, but couldn't help crying. He looked at Wang Ling and blamed himself. It's all our fault. Why did we come here to force him out in the first place? If we hadn't come suddenly, the captain would not have left midway, and Xiao Hei would not have to die. Gu Suanwu said with a sad expression, but if the captain doesn't leave the mountain, can we avenge the instructor's revenge? Why? As soon as he heard this, Sun Dehua cut off half of the cigarette he had smoked. He sighed and complained, I'm still too weak. I thought I could gallop on the battlefield after learning something from the captain, but now it seems that I am still useless. I can't even take revenge, and the captain has to go out in person. Speaking of this, Gu Suanwu smiled bitterly. To say it's useless, to say it's too weak, it seems we were the ones. Our team was too weak at the beginning. If we could be stronger, how could we let Tan Yahe? At the end of the sentence, Gu Suanwu really couldn't talk anymore. What's the use of talking about this now? At this time, Lu Hui made a discordant voice. In war, how can there be no death? If you don't avenge yourself, then you are still a man? If Brother Ling chooses to take revenge, that is also a man's choice. Sun Dehua glared at him, but he was not angry. He just snorted, I have been around for so long, and in the end I was lectured by a sergeant. Yes, what you said makes sense. The captain's choice was not wrong, but it was pitiful. It's Xiao Hei. After going around and around Xiao Hei's body, everyone turned their heads and looked at the police dog cemetery again. Wow! In front of Xiao Hei's tombstone, Wang Ling was still crying. All the thoughts he had on the battlefield turned into tears at this moment, and they burst into tears, as if they would never stop. He didn't know when the state would end. Even Sun Dehu and others didn't dare to disturb him, so they could only wait silently. However, one person dared to interrupt. No, to be precise, he is not a human being, such as Uncle He. After Wang Ling cried for a long time, Uncle He's lazy voice suddenly came from his head. You are a big man, why are you crying like this? Isn't it embarrassing? Wang Ling originally didn't think of Uncle He, but now that he heard Uncle He's voice, he immediately changed the target of his hatred. Uncle He, you are the steward of the entire system. Even the red alert world was designed by you, little one. You should know about He's situation, right? Uncle He answered calmly, yes, of course I know. Then why didn't you tell me? At this point, Wang Ling almost screamed. Without eating, drinking, or sleeping, he just squatted there and waited for me for 7 days. Uncle He, why are you so hard-hearted? Snored. This sentence seemed to hit Uncle He's pain point. He snorted coldly and said, I have a heart of stone? Well, I am just an artificial intelligence brain. Isn't it normal for me to have a heart of stone? Although Uncle He is an artificial intelligence brain, he is very different from other artificial intelligence brains. By chance, he has evolved human thinking and emotions. Although he is not a human being, he still wants to experience various human emotions. It is rare for him to get angry at the word hard-hearted. However, how can Wang Ling care about this now? He just roared, artificial intelligence? Didn't you say before that you already have human emotions? What do you call emotions? Do you know what missing is? Do you know how uncomfortable it is when you cry? You created Xiao He, but do you know why it spends its life waiting there? Ah. This questioning made Uncle He, who was originally angry, instantly fall silent. It is true that he already has human thoughts and emotions, but his essence is an artificial intelligence brain after all, and everything he comes into contact with is too cold. But Wang Ling's questioning touched his most sensitive spot. Yes, missing you, what does it feel like? Why do you miss me? Thinking about this seemingly simple question, Uncle He was unable to speak for a long time. The original anger, after thinking about it, quietly disappeared, and was replaced by a sigh. People cannot be resurrected after death, and dogs are no exception. They only live once. Such words of comfort were already immune to Wang Ling and had no effect at all. However, just when Wang Ling gritted his teeth and wanted to continue questioning or even scolding, Uncle He's tone suddenly changed. But, the program is fine. Huh? What do you mean? Wang Ling's eyes widened instantly. Uncle He explained unhurriedly, I originally had to wait until you reached that level before I could tell you, but now, in response to what you just said, I can reveal it to you in advance. This whole Red the Police world is a program designed by me. According to the regulations, I cannot directly intervene, but you can. Xiao He is also a product of this program and belongs to a virtual existence. If he dies, he may not be able to be resurrected. Can it be resurrected? Upon hearing this, Wang Ling immediately became excited. Uncle He, what I just said was too much. I'm sorry. Please tell me what should be done. On such a critical issue, Uncle He was as usual and lost his temper. Haha, I have already told you what I should tell you. If you have to continue to reveal it, you can only kill as many enemies as possible and accumulate score points. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 245. Accumulate points. After hearing this, Wang Ling was a little dazed, and his mind was quickly thinking about the information contained in this sentence. The fundamental purpose of the emergence of this different dimensional system is to use this virtual red alert world to achieve the purpose of strengthening, and the points that appear in the system seem to be only valid for the redemption system. When it comes to this redemption system, Wang Ling has always been a little bit dumbfounded. As far as the primary and intermediate redemptions that have been unlocked so far, the redemption options in this redemption system can be said to be very few, but every redemption item is very awesome. Quite a feeling of good steel on the blade. The currently unlocked primary redemption and intermediate redemption obviously do not mention any redemption items to resurrect the Red Alert World character program. In this case, it can only be. Thinking of this, Wang Ling's eyes suddenly lit up. Uncle Hey, are you talking about advanced exchange? But on this critical issue, Uncle Hey just smiled and said nothing. His attitude was a bit ambiguous, but Wang Ling could tell that Uncle Hey had already acquiesced. Advanced redemption, advanced redemption, advanced redemption. After muttering 3 times in a row, Wang Ling gradually stopped crying, and his originally distracted eyes quickly became firm. 100,000 points unlock advanced redemption. I have accumulated a total of it's over 50,000, and we're halfway done. If we work harder, it'll be 50,000 points. It's not difficult. Thinking of this, Wang Ling finally let out a sigh of relief, stretched out his hand to wipe away the tears on his face, and stood up slowly. The design of this red alert world is really clever. Wang Ling had been sitting cross-legged here for such a period of time, and his legs were really numb. After standing up, he staggered and subconsciously held onto Xiao Hei's tombstone. Only then did he stand firm. Although it was just a very simple movement, Wang Ling felt as if he had just touched Xiao Hei's body. The feeling was very weird and mysterious. Team leader. When Sun Dehu and the others saw Wang Ling standing up, they all stepped forward and asked, "How are you? Are you okay?" Wang Ling took a deep breath and shook his head. "It's okay. I feel much better after crying." His attitude changed so quickly that Sun Dehu and the 4 other monks, who were a little over 2 feet tall, were confused. However, Wang Ling was able to look away and calm down, which was always good news. The 4 of them quickly wiped away their tears. Headed by Sun Dehu, they quickly used hindsight and admonished, "Captain, gentlemen, it's okay to cry, it's a sin, but after all, the image is very ugly. Xiao Hei is gone, but you still have us. Our time with you will not be shorter than Xiao Hei's in the future. Can you take care of our feelings?" Upon hearing what he said, Wang Ling suddenly became happy, pushed Sun Dehu's head with one hand, and cursed with a smile, "Are you stupid? Xiao Hei is a police dog, to put it bluntly, he is just a dog, and you actually compete with a police dog? A sense of presence. Ha ha ha. Brother Tiger, are you jealous? But, it's not appropriate to say jealous. You should be wronged." "Well, yes, you are wronged." The other 3 people instantly became happy, making fun with hip-hop, and the original sad atmosphere was quickly broken by them. At this time, Lieutenant Luo Jiang also walked over with Lu Hui and Fei Niu, and said comfortingly, "The matter is over, please forgive me, the battle for hegemony is still going on, don't be held back by these things." Faced with this advice, Wang Ling just smiled bitterly and shook his head. Fat Niu couldn't say anything, but this guy was choking all the time. Wang Ling felt a little guilty for him, so he simply patted his shoulder, and in turn comforted him and said, "Okay, it's all over. Stop crying and show off the energy you used when you bullied me as a new recruit." Wang Ling was temporarily transferred to this place because he was worried about the duality of the different dimensional system and showed symptoms of battlefield phobia. The first time Fei Niu saw him, he treated him as a new recruit and bullied him. As a result, he was kicked by Wang Ling. Kicked away. When this matter was mentioned, Fat Cow, who was still choking, burst out laughing. Then, Wang Lingke said solemnly, "Thank you, old man, for everything you did for Xiaohei during those days." "Brother Ling, don't you blame me," Fei Niu was still a little worried. To be honest, if Xiaohei's situation really has become a foregone conclusion and cannot be undone, there will inevitably be a gap between Wang Ling and him. However, after Uncle He reminded him, Wang Ling saw hope again. There is still a chance for change in all of this. This system really has the medicine to regret. Although half of the points needed to be unlocked for advanced redemption, it was only a matter of time. Wang Ling was determined to do it sooner or later, so naturally he was not so cautious about this matter and nodded happily. The matter has come to this, and there is no point in being sad anymore. Xiaohei has gone, but these brothers from the past are still there. Having said this, Wang Ling hugged Fat Niu again and patted him on the back. "Brother, sometimes I also envy you. You stay here, away from the cruelty of war, and the bull demon can live without you every day. Heartless joy. But we can't do it. This damn battle for hegemony will continue. We soldiers can only rush forward and defeat the allies." Then, Wang Ling let go of his hand and smiled bitterly. "I seem to have said a lot of irrelevant things. Anyway, do your best." Fatty Cow finally stopped choking, wiped away his tears, and nodded firmly. At this time, Fat Niu, who had lost his energy due to various reasons, seemed to have regained his original intention, and his eyes became sunny again. "I've seen this and cried. Let's go back." Wang Ling waved his hand and led everyone back. And when they just left the police dog cemetery, Wang Ling vaguely seemed to hear two more barks of woof, woof, and subconsciously looked back, as if he could see Xiaohei making fun at him in the distance, sometimes chasing his tail in circles. Sometimes the person stands upright with his paws raised, and sometimes sticks out his tongue and squints his eyes. However, in the blink of an eye, these sounds and images all disappeared. At the end of the sight, there was only a cold tombstone. Seeing this, Wang Ling's nose felt a little sore again, but after all, he already had a goal. In the end, Wang Ling still managed to hold it back, and just said silently in his heart, "Xiaohei, wait for me." With a silent recitation, Wang Ling seemed to have found other goals that he had to accomplish in this red alert world, besides revenge, and he was more motivated than before. Of course, after these two consecutive farewells and this crying episode, Wang Ling's heart gradually changed a little. At this time, he seemed to have fully taken on this role in the world of red alert. The youthfulness of the past quickly receded. What was revealed in his eyes was unshakable determination and persistence, and even a hint of vigor and murderous intent. Emerge. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 246. After leaving the police dog cemetery, everyone went back to the training base without stopping for half an hour. Standing at the gate of the training base, Wang Ling took a deep breath and looked at the familiar yet unfamiliar base in front of him, feeling filled with emotion. However, he had no intention of revisiting his old place. He shook his head and said, "Since we've already seen Xiaohei, Lieutenant Luo, Lu Hui, and Fei Niu, we won't bother you anymore and we'll say goodbye. Lieutenant Wang Ling, this is a rare visit for you. Why don't you come in and hang out again? At least let me do my duty as a landlord." Lieutenant Luo Qiang wanted to persuade him to stay. But Wang Ling smiled bitterly, "Forget it, the entire police dog training base has changed. Everyone I know is already here, and Xiaohei has left. There is no point in me visiting again." Okay. Okay, there's no need to hold anything back, let's go." Having said this, Lieutenant Luo Qiang had no choice but to continue to persuade him to stay, and waved goodbye along with Lu Hui and Fei Niu. Wang Ling took one last look at the police dog training base, and finally turned all his emotions into a sigh, and got into the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle sadly, followed by Sundahu and the other four. After it was fully loaded, the anti-aircraft crawler vehicle started instantly, returned to the original route, and quickly sped out of the sight of Luo Qiang and the three of them. "Okay, stop looking, we're already gone." After the tracked vehicle could no longer be seen, Luo Qiang greeted Lu Hui and Fei Niu. Lu Hui was a little better. He was just a little emotional and didn't think much about it. But Fei Niu felt sad for Wang Ling and Xiao He today, but after untying his knot, he also saw a lot of things. After returning to the training base, he quickly found his bull demon and hugged him. Together, rubbing and playing. Yes, because of the bull demon, Fat Niu lost the opportunity to go to the battlefield, but it was a blessing in disguise. It was precisely because they avoided the cruelty of the battlefield that he and Fat Niu could continue to play around so heartlessly. Returning to the wartime base on the mainland, the atmosphere in the anti-aircraft crawler car was a bit awkward. The four of them, Sun Dehua, looked at each other, wanting to say something to lighten the atmosphere, but they couldn't find any good topics for a while. After all, Wang Ling had cried bitterly not long ago, and they couldn't quite grasp what kind of emotion he was feeling now. In fact, although he still felt a little uncomfortable, after learning about the existence of the regret medicine, Wang Ling had already looked away and did not sink from the sadness. Now, he just sighed. No matter how real the Red Alert world is, it is still a system program, and Xiao He is also a member of this program. There is an insurmountable gap between reality and reality. However, it happened that it was a virtual police dog in this system that made Wang Ling cry so uncontrollably. Looking back now, Wang Ling felt a little sad. However, this is not that difficult to understand. When reading novels, because of certain plots, if you are deeply emotional, you will cry. What's more, Wang Ling is not just reading a novel, but experiencing it himself. If Red Alert World is compared to a novel, Wang Lingna is the protagonist. However, this protagonist is also very sentimental. It is normal to cry during the plot. After thinking through these problems, Wang Ling gradually came out of this sighing state, and the corners of his mouth turned up slightly. This subtle movement was also noticed by Sun Dehu and the other four. Knowing that Wang Ling's mood returned to normal, they hurriedly cheered up the atmosphere. Some topics made everyone laugh, but some topics made Wang Ling laugh. I couldn't help but want to hit someone. In short, the journey back was not lonely and boring. After several hours of driving, the anti-aircraft crawler finally returned to the base. Sun Dehu and the other four returned to the Wolf Team station naturally, but Wang Ling still had to report to the command post. "Sir, Wang Ling, captain of the Wolf Squad, come back to the base and report." When he arrived at the command post, Wang Ling naturally gave a military salute. Major General Li Weiqiang seemed a little surprised. "Why so fast? Have you seen Xiao He?" When Wang Ling mentioned Xiao He, he thought of the cold tombstone. A gloomy look flashed in his eyes, but was immediately replaced by a fiery energy. "Sir, I have seen it." "Well, okay, you go back and do your work first." "Yes." After Wang Ling left, Zhao Pingwan clasped his chin and asked, "Sir, do you feel that something is wrong?" Wang Ling seems to have changed a lot when he came back this time. He was worthy of being a commander and deputy. They could see something unusual about Wang Ling just by meeting him. Major General Li Weiqi also nodded. "Yeah, he always gave me the feeling of being a bit confused before, but this time, I feel that he has suddenly matured a lot, and the emotions in his eyes are also very complicated and contradictory. But in the end it was replaced by a fighting spirit. It really makes people curious, what happened to this guy at the police dog training base? Who knows?" Naturally, Wang Ling was unaware of the discussion among several officers. After leaving the command post, he naturally returned to the Wolf Team station. The local war was won, and the entire base had a rare week's rest. During this week, except for basic indicators such as patrolling and getting up, the entire army could be said to have no tasks. In addition to chatting and exercising with the members of the Wolf Squad, Wang Ling did a lot of at that time. I was staring at the battlefield alone in a daze. When he suffered from war phobia before, the state seemed to be somewhat similar to now. Xiaoping Wang was a little worried and even talked to him several times. Finally, he learned that Wang Ling had not sickly again, but only occasionally. Hypocritical, only then did he put his mind to it. There are no tasks in the red alert world these days, and reality is no exception. Although he got the news that he would have to take a make-up physical fitness test in about half a month, Wang Ling didn't take it to heart at all, and his life trajectory was no different from before. When it comes to this physical fitness test, it is not that difficult because the physical education teacher deliberately put it down. There are only a few students who fail to pass the long-distance running. However, there are still some people, and these people are similar to Wang Ling back then. Their test scores were so poor that even the physical education teachers couldn't stand it, so they didn't give him any advice. That night, Wang Ling walked on the playground as usual after dinner and took a walk alone. But as we walked, several people soon came to the track and started running huffing and puffing. These people are basically either big fat people or people with no strength. In short, they have extremely poor physical fitness. Judging from their posture, it was obvious that they had received the notification of the physical fitness test and began to sharpen their weapons before the battle. However, looking at the way they were running, if we really followed strict standards, they probably wouldn't be able to pass. Wang Ling didn't care much about these, he just laughed and walked as usual. However, he didn't care. Someone did. Not long after he passed by, an annoying voice came from not far away. "Ah, isn't this Wang Ling? Don't you know the news? In half a month, physical fitness the test is no longer taking place. Why are you still so leisurely? Aren't you afraid of making a fool of yourself like last time?" Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 247. This voice was full of teasing and sarcasm, without the slightest kindness. After hearing this, Wang Ling's expression did not change. He turned his head following the voice and realized that the person who had just spoken was Zhenlong. This guy has always liked to show off his power from the beginning. He came here to ridicule Wang Ling after the physical test, but now he naturally has no good intentions. At this time of year, it is neither cold nor hot, the breeze is not dry, and it is cool and pleasant. Every night at school, there will be many students gathering on the playground, and Zhenlong is now one of them. Now Zhenlong was carrying a beer bottle under the large searchlight on the roof of the teaching building. His face was slightly rosy, as if he had drank a lot. Behind him were his three roommates, but judging from their attitudes, some people believed that he was a coward. These guys were blowing beer boldly, but when they saw Wang Ling from a distance, they came here to have fun. A dogleg also echoed, "Brother Long, this is your problem. What do you have to worry about? The things you need to worry about are the ones with less than half a bottle hanging around, but they don't even have half a bottle. What is there to worry about?" Another person was also making fun of him. "That's right, if you know you can't pass at all, then just break it. Oh no, in our school, as long as there are no major mistakes, and you pay enough tuition, you will get a diploma. Then I can bribe you as a physical education teacher, you can still pass no matter how bad you are, right?" In the past, the ridicule and sarcasm of these people would indeed make Wang Ling angry, but now he has experienced more than one large-scale war in the Red Alert world, and his horizons are no longer at this level. These people in the school, a small fight really doesn't interest him much. Glancing at Zhenlong, who was pondering, Wang Ling smiled calmly, "No need to bother." Then, he turned around naturally and left the area. He walked around casually and left the playground. He was indifferent, but Zhenglong got a little angry after being disappointed. He drank a sip of beer and cursed, "Damn, why are you pretending to be a big-tailed wolf? You are such a little chicken, are you still pretending to be like me?" Behind him, a dogleg also looked at him with disdain. "I pretended to be X and got struck by lightning, just wait, brother Long. When the time comes, he will make up for the physical fitness test. He will make fun of him." Zhenglong snorted and agreed, "That's right, just call more people and wait to see the jokes. Speaking of which, our school is too boring. It's rare to find fun, so of course we have to make it bigger." "No. That's right, that's right. As the saying goes, the forest is big and there are all kinds of birds. There are really not a few people in this world who are as unscrupulous and unforgiving as Zhenglong." It happened that Wang Ling encountered such a person. I really don't know whether it was Wang Ling who was unlucky or Zhenglong who was unlucky. However, no matter what, the physical fitness test is still nearly half a month away, and Wang Ling can be stable during this period. After returning to the dormitory, Wang Ling lay on the bed to rest for a while, then contacted Uncle He and went to the Red Alert world. In the past few days, there was nothing going on in the Red Alert world. Wang Ling cherished this opportunity and relaxed as much as he could. Every day, he shuttled back and forth between the real world and the Red Alert world, as if he was on vacation. However, such comfortable days are really luxurious in the world of Red Alert. A week passed almost in the blink of an eye. On this morning, the two major coalition bases on the battlefield became busy. Each team was packing up their tents and arranging to assemble. As a unit that often went out to fight, it was common for them to set up camps in the wild. Even if there were more tents in the base, it did not waste much of their time. The rest is the business of the engineers. After all, it is necessary to move long distances and transfer battlefields. The large and small buildings in this base, whether they are defensive buildings or main buildings, cannot be taken away at all. But the money can be taken away. No, all the engineers in the base are busy, frantically dismantling almost all the buildings in the base and turning them into development funds for the base. After all, games are different from reality. Normally, it takes some time to dismantle a building and even sell the materials. But here, that step is skipped. As soon as the disassembly is completed, all the materials are converted into funds. Not only that, there are working conscripts inside each main building. After the disassembly is completed, these conscripts will naturally lose their jobs and have to shoulder their guns and join the fighting force. Building a building is relatively time-consuming, but dismantling it is much faster. All the engineers started working together, and many buildings in the base were dismantled one after another. It only took a few hours, except for the command post. All buildings were demolished. Wang Ling did not have the authority to know the exact amount of funds received for the demolition of these buildings. However, there were dozens of extra mobilization troops due to the demolition of the main buildings alone, and they were temporarily organized into a small team. The names of the teams on the coalition side are usually animal names, but this team was named the mechanical team because of its special origin. As for the engineering soldiers, after finishing their work, they all entered the command post and disappeared. Looking at the engineering soldiers, Wang Ling was thoughtful. This type of military unit can be said to be a rather strange existence in the world of Red Alert. After entering the battlefield of the Red Alert world for so long, Wang Ling has conquered many allied bases, but he has not seen a single engineer among them. To put it bluntly, this engineering soldier is essentially a bug type of soldier. It exists when it is needed and does not exist when it is not needed. Although this Red Alert world is strange, to put it bluntly, it was designed by Uncle He after this game. This type of bug troops is itself an extra auxiliary program to complete those places that are difficult to design. When working, these engineers can appear in large numbers to complete construction, repair, and even disassembly. But during a war, do you want to fight the enemy's engineers? Sorry, we do not have that. After figuring out the nature and meaning of the engineering soldiers, Wang Ling couldn't help but smile. This is somewhat interesting. It seems reasonable, but it is also somewhat unreasonable. Indeed, in the Red Alert game, building, construction, and demolition are all done with the movement of funds. In this Red Alert world, naturally you cannot be so casual, and bug troops emerge as the times require. This kind of existence can be said to be reasonable or unreasonable. After all the engineering soldiers disappeared, the command post finally took action. In any base, the existence of a command post can be said to be very light. Naturally, such a building is not as simple as it appears. Under the eyes of all the personnel in the base, they saw that the command post was rapidly changing, with all large and small parts twisting and shrinking. Finally, the entire command post transformed into a base vehicle, which looked a bit like Transformers. With such a base vehicle, coupled with sufficient funds and powerful guards, as long as it moves to a suitable location, a powerful coalition base can be quickly rebuilt. The completion of the change of command post means that this coalition base is ready for a comprehensive relocation, but it did not start taking action immediately. Instead, it waited for the other base to be ready. All the tanks and vehicles of all the arms in the two bases, 2 more base vehicles were added before the official departure. The goal, the decisive battle on the battlefield. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 248. Buzz Buzz. Across. On a broad road, 2 coalition base vehicles drove slowly past, followed by numerous tanks and densely packed ground infantry behind them. These people are worthy of being soldiers. They are numerous and dense, but they are not disorderly at all. All the troops are running forward in an orderly manner. Although the running speed is not too fast, they can barely keep up with the base vehicle. Process. This is a force migrating long distances on the battlefield. To be precise, it should be 2 migrating coalition bases. The commanders of these 2 bases are naturally Major General Li Weiqiang and Major General Luo Er. Among the many soldier captains, Wang Ling is also following them closely. Wang Ling had already had the experience of changing battlefields and changing maps twice before, but both times were a bit special. One was when he graduated from the barracks early, the other was when he rushed to the battlefield from the police dog training base, and both times he was alone in the battlefield. Traveling around, they all have anti-aircraft crawler vehicles to travel around. But now, there is a mass migration and many infantry are marching together. Even if Wang Ling is a captain, he does not have that salary and can only follow the large groups of soldiers and run together. And the distance between the battlefield where they were originally located and the battlefield of the decisive battle is not short. According to the current marching speed of the 2 bases, it is estimated that they will have to travel for a week. However, Li Weiqi and General Luo Er did not look anxious and did not report in advance with all the tanks. After the war starts, it takes a lot of time, ranging from a few months to a long one or even a few years. Although it is a decisive battlefield, the result cannot be determined in a short time. In addition, although the headquarters had previously explained the battle situation and urged them, there was no urgent information on the decisive battlefield, so naturally they were not in a hurry to arrive at the battlefield. As the large troops marched, almost everyone's thoughts were on running. Apart from the sound of the locomotive engines, the only sound left among the troops in the 2 bases was the sound of running across, and no one had time to talk. If you do this for a long time, it will inevitably become boring. But Wang Ling didn't think so. As a otaku who could stay alone in the dormitory for a long time, this kind of boredom was not a problem for Wang Ling. Instead, he took advantage of the convenience of marching and kept watching everything around him. It is magical to say that this Red Alert world is obviously just a world designed by Uncle Hay based on this game, but it is no different from the real world. Along the way, Wang Ling has seen too many breathtaking wonders. Crossing the Gobi Desert, Wang Ling saw many jagged and weathered rocks. Passing through the forest outskirts, Wang Ling saw many towering ancient trees, blowing in the wind, and the rustling sound was soothing. He also passed through the mountainous areas and saw towering mountain peaks. The places we passed along the way were fortunately not affected by the war and retained the original appearance of this world, which was natural and beautiful. Wang Ling looked at it and felt particularly comfortable. I thought that if the war ends, this red alert world will be a good place to travel. If that happens one day, it would be quite interesting to think about. When other people travel, they have to spend money to buy tickets and travel long distances, but Wang Ling's true self just lies in bed, letting his deep consciousness enter this virtual world, and travels around without any scruples. With him in this red alert world, when the time comes to travel around, it can be said that you don't have to spend a penny at all. When you are tired, you can go back to the real world to rest. That is so comfortable. Okay, that's a bit far-fetched. In fact, this world is going through a battle for hegemony after all, and those seen before belong to lucky areas and have not been affected. But as night fell and the army marched to a city, Wang Ling fell silent. Unfortunately, this city right now has been captured by the Allied forces, and there may have been records of battles between the two armies. There are ruins everywhere. Too many of the original high-rise buildings have been knocked down, and the remaining bricks and rubble are everywhere. The ground was also riddled with craters, and the air was filled with the smell of gunpowder smoke left by the war. Overall, it was a depression. Coupled with the faint light emitted by the setting sun, the entire city seemed like an old man on the verge of death, silently recalling the past, but could only accept the fate of decline. Feeling such depression, Wang Ling was also heartbroken. This is the consequence of the war. In this war, two major forces compete for dominance. It is unknown how long it has been going on and how many civilians have died. The death situation of the indigenous people in this affected city must not be optimistic. Even those who survived the victims also had to leave their homes and move to other places where there was no war to survive. As a result, the whole city looks even more lonely. But now, the arrival of the two major coalition forces seems to have injected a little life into this declining city, giving it a slight vitality. After such a long march, most of the infantry were a little tired, and it was dark again. The two commanders simply decided to rest here for the night. With more people, work efficiency has improved a lot. The city was in ruins, but someone quickly found a few relatively intact buildings. The two bases quickly arranged for personnel to take turns on duty, and others settled in an orderly manner. Go in. Sitting in front of a wall on the third floor of the building, Wang Ling was eating dried meat and thinking about what he had seen today. While he was thinking about it, Uncle Hay suddenly jumped in. Now, let's officially enter the third chapter, the decisive battle. Boy, although the first two chapters had some bumps and bruises, the final completion is remarkable and very good. Wang Ling sneered and responded, it's not that exaggerated. It's just that I have played the game for a long time and knows what these enemy soldiers are like. Haha, although this sentence is true, don't be too self-effacing. This world is specially prepared for you. Of course you are an alternative. You know yourself and your enemy. It's not surprising. Uncle Hay encouraged, besides, boy, you have done really well. Ever since those viruses invaded, you have almost been overcoming obstacles along the way, and you are almost invincible. This is of course because you know the enemy and us well because of that, but in fact, if someone else takes your place, he may not have the same results as you. After all, if you die in battle here, you will die in reality. It is just a psychological hurdle. It can stump countless people. Wang Ling nodded after hearing this. The different dimensional system is a double-edged sword. If you only look at the benefits, it is indeed against the heavens. However, This sword is also very likely to hurt yourself, and even a single mistake may cause extremely serious consequences to you. Even Wang Ling had to go through a few months of buffering time before finally breaking through this obstacle with the help of the instructor's death. If it were anyone else, knowing this, whether they could continue to stay in this world would be a big question mark. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 249. But after Uncle He finished praising him, he changed his tone and reminded, after changing the battlefield twice before, you should also be able to see that as the battlefield upgrades, the difficulty will also increase. This time you are about to face the battlefield. Is no exception, the methods you used in the past may be ineffective. When Wang Ling heard this, he frowned slightly, feeling a little worried in his heart. After all, this is no joke. If you die in battle here, you will die in reality. He cannot be careless. In the past, when they were invincible, they knew themselves and their enemies, and naturally they could win every battle. However, if the Allies suddenly changed their tactics, Wang Ling might be caught off guard. Haha, what, are you scared? Uncle He seemed to have guessed Wang Ling's thoughts and said with relief, don't worry too much. The fundamental purpose of the system is to strengthen you. Even if the difficulty is upgraded, it will be within an acceptable range. After all, the game method is limited, and this battlefield, no matter how it changes, it remains the same, and the two armies are still facing off and fighting. What's more, with the upgrade of the battlefield, not only the enemy army has become stronger, but your coalition forces have also become stronger. Call. After hearing this, Wang Ling breathed a sigh of relief. I was shocked. I thought the system was deliberately trying to play tricks on me. Ha ha ha. It was rare to see Wang Ling frustrated. Uncle He smiled so heartily, but Wang Ling felt a little angry. Just when Wang Ling was about to get angry, Uncle He quickly stopped and cleverly changed the topic. The decisive battle has begun, and it will affect a wide range of people. You heard your commander say before that, except for you, the wars everywhere they are all working hard to speed up the progress, and now, many battlefields have entered the final fierce stage, and some are about to decide the winner. Oh, Wang Ling was slightly interested in this topic. What are they? Can I see them? Can. As Uncle He finished speaking, the electronic map in Wang Ling's subconscious that had darkened due to the demolition of the radar suddenly turned back on like a television. The first image that came to mind was a fierce battle in a city. On this battlefield, it was obvious that the coalition forces had the upper hand. All major forces were mobilized to completely surround and blockade the Allied base in the city, and gradually narrowed the encirclement. The surrounded Allied base could only passively parry, and would only be destroyed. It's just a matter of time. The battle situation on this battlefield has been decided, and there is nothing to see. Then the scene changes, and another battlefield comes to mind. This is in a mountain forest, and the decisive battle between the two major forces has begun. However, the overall situation is obviously that the Allied forces are weak. The Allied forces are charging with a large force, and there are 4 3-star elite-level light prism tanks in the rear, emitting light unscrupulously. With the prism rays and the charge of the large forces, the coalition forces were quickly defeated. Not long after watching, even the command post was exploded by several light prism rays. Seeing this scene, Wang Ling clenched his teeth slightly. They both belonged to the coalition camp. Seeing this group of comrades defeated and annihilated, Wang Ling felt awkward and even a little angry. However, now he is just a spectator and cannot get involved at all. No matter how angry it is, he can only endure it, which is a bit helpless. The screen continues to jump. The battlefield that appears this time is on a snowy field. The two major forces are not fighting fiercely. However, the Allied forces have obviously assembled a large number of troops, and the coalition forces have also gathered all the fronts. It is expected that the two sides will fight in the near future. A large-scale war is about to break out, and this battle will probably determine the entire situation on this battlefield. The screen jumped again, and the battlefield that appeared was on a continuous island, and a fierce naval battle was breaking out between the two sides. The Allied forces dispatched 3 aircraft carriers, which were continuously transporting carrier-based fighter jets, while the coalition forces dispatched 5 Sea Scorpion air defense ships, tit for tat. Besides, the Allied Dolphins and the Allied Giant Squid are also fighting hard. The Allied destroyers and the Allied Typhoon-class attack submarines are also fighting hard. In the distance, there is the Allied Dreadnought-class warship launching missiles at an extremely long distance, but they are blocked by the Allied forces. Intercepted by Aegis frigate. Overall, this battlefield was very tense. The naval battle between the two sides was very fierce, but for a while, there was no winner at all. In addition, the screen jumped several times in succession, and Wang Ling also saw many battlefield situations. Because of the Allied riots and the coming of the final battle, all major battlefields have accelerated the pace of the war. Most of these battlefields have entered the final stage, in which both sides win or lose, regardless of who is superior or inferior. But there are also some battlefields where the fighting has ended, the troops have been organized, and are about to start migrating. There is a saying that goes like this: how can the eggs be completed when the nest is overturned? The two major forces launched a war for hegemony, and the scope of the impact was too wide. The scenes revealed by Uncle Hay were only a few battlefields of the war. And the battlefields in just a few points have been so brutal. Can you imagine how cruel this entire battle for hegemony must be? Wang Ling doesn't like war, so when he sees these scenes, he will inevitably feel a little sad. However, fortunately, this is only a virtual game world, and Wang Ling is not naive enough to criticize this battle for hegemony with all the words justice and humanity. After watching these battlefield scenes, Wang Ling was also a little tired, so he chose a slightly comfortable position, spread out the bedding on his back, and fell asleep. Wang Ling rarely spent a whole night in the red alert world, and today was no exception. After closing his eyes, his consciousness had returned to the real world, and he took a full day's rest before returning here. It's interesting to say that because of the existence of such a system, Wang Ling has 2 full days of experience for others, and occasionally more. If it's just an ordinary life, then that's it. In these extra days, this guy is struggling on the battlefield. As time goes by, Wang Ling may have already left the ivory tower level of real life, no matter in terms of strength or vision. Returning to the red alert world again, Wang Ling turned around and continued to sleep. He was sleeping on the floor with only a thin mattress, which made him a little uncomfortable, but Wang Ling didn't care anymore. He pillowed his battle uniform on his pillow and fell asleep quickly. Directly below until dawn. Because I am running long distances, I am just running forward, so I don't need to do morning exercises during these days. When they woke up in the morning, everyone had breakfast in batches. After taking a short rest, they continued to move towards the decisive battlefield. In the next few days, the two bases repeated the same thing every day, with monotonous running and resting at night. After several days in a row, the two bases finally arrived at the decisive battle site smoothly. Different Dimension Red Alert World. Author, Sanqian Lang. Chapter 250. Although it is a place for a decisive battle, it does not end with a direct fight between the two sides. This battlefield for the decisive battle is destined to assemble a large number of troops and consume a lot of time. And because the significance and role of this decisive battle was so great, the general headquarters of the coalition forces naturally moved here and was deployed at the rear of the decisive battlefield to watch and command from a distance. Like the previous battlefields, the territories in the rear area are all separate maps, such as barracks, field hospitals, and police dog training bases. Although closely related to the war, as long as the front line does not collapse, it will not threaten them. This is the same situation where the general headquarters is located. After entering this map, Wang Ling immediately received the radar signal in his mind, and the electronic map that had been held in his subconscious for several days was also opened. With this convenience, Wang Ling finally saw the appearance of this place clearly. The general headquarters is located on a plain, part of which is covered with woods and crops. There are also 2 simple pastures, more than 10 cows, and several mines, including 3 gem mines. This gem mine is quite valuable, 1 cart is worth as much as 2 carts of gold mine. However, it is a pity that this thing is a non-renewable mineral. Without the mining machine in the center of the gold mine, it will be gone once it is shipped. Other than that, there is nothing else special about this map. In the very center of this map is the location of the general headquarters. However, the area of the general headquarters was far from the majestic and domineering Wang Ling imagined. This area looks a bit like a medium-sized coalition base. It is also surrounded by a large number of walls, but there are various defensive buildings inside, such as sentry guns, magnetic storm coils and anti-aircraft guns. In addition, an ore refinery, a tank factory, a radar, a combat laboratory and other main buildings were built in the base. Of these building facades, what caught Wang Ling's attention the most was the nuclear reactor in the corner. This thing, to put it simply, is actually a nuclear power plant. The total amount of electricity generated by this nuclear power plant is almost as much as that of dozens of ordinary power plants, and compared to dozens of power plants, it occupies a much smaller area and costs much less. This price-performance ratio can be said to be quite high. However, this thing also has strong drawbacks. After all, we are at war. If the nuclear power plant is exploded by the enemy, the power of the instant explosion will be like a small nuclear bomb, not any weaker than a self-destructing truck. Therefore, even with the technology of nuclear power plants, few coalition bases dare to build them when absolute safety cannot be guaranteed. Obviously, the general headquarters has no scruples in this regard. As for the general headquarters, it is located in the central area of all buildings. The building of the general headquarters is not too exaggerated. It is larger than the command post of the general base, but the size is limited. Overall, it looks like a mechanized fortress. Outside the general command base, there are a large number of soldiers and tanks scattered around. They are gathered together in a very orderly manner and formed into formations. The overall number can be said to be very large. They are located on the electronic map, which is a dense red patch. Click, it's almost mind-numbing to watch. There are also many people moving around in the base. Being able to enter this general command base, the status of these people is not low at all. After Wang Ling and others arrived here, they also followed the practices of the previous troops and chose an open space to assemble and organize the troops. Then the 2 generals each walked out of the base vehicle with their deputies, waved their hands, and called all the teams. Captain, after confirming his identity and unit number at the entrance, he successfully entered the general command base. Wang Ling had previously observed on the map that the people active in the general command base had the same identities as them. They were all base commanders who came from various battlefields, plus their deputies and team captains, gathered together. Quite a feeling of a gathering of elites. And when so many big shots gathered together, their respective military ranks became very eye-catching. Among all commanders, the lowest is at the rank of senior colonel. Major generals like Li Wiki and Luo Er are also common, and there are even a small number of lieutenant generals. Among the deputies, most are school officers and a few are lieutenants. As for the captains, the military ranks are very lively, ranging from non-commissioned officers to colonel officers. Wang Ling's rank of captain is considered high among this group of captains, but he is by no means the top one. After all, there are still some captains at the rank of school officer above him. In addition to these characters, there are also groups of guards patrolling the base, and there are a large number of tanks parked in the corners. If there is a sudden enemy situation, these guard forces cannot be underestimated. These are the entire lineup of this General Command base at the moment. Major General Li Wiki and Major General Luo Er were able to reach this point, and their connections were naturally quite extensive. As soon as she entered the base, someone noticed it, and soon someone came up to talk to him. "Old Li, old Luo. Haha, I didn't expect that you would end the battle so quickly and get here." The two of them followed the sound and saw a strong man with the same rank of Major General walking over not far away. They immediately became happy. "Old Zhao. Haha, long time no see, long time no see. Hey, Lao Zhao, why are you making fun of us when we haven't seen each other for such a long time? You just want to end the battle, and you're not happy that we won." The man called Lao Zhao, whose full name is Zhao Wuji, is 1.9 meters tall, with a strong back and strong waist, a resolute face, and a bit of coldness and fire in his eyes. After Major General Zhao Wuji approached, military salutes between the two sides were unavoidable. After saluting each other, Zhao Wuji said, it's different. The allied forces we caught up with are not very strong in fighting. Of course we can fight them, there is no suspense. I heard that there was a serious stalemate there. Facing the four powerful armies, they were basically holding on. I originally thought that I would end the battle quickly so that I could help you, but I suddenly received an order from the headquarters. I rushed over. But I didn't expect that you would come so quickly. Many old acquaintances gathered together, and there were naturally many similar greetings and chats. However, those were basically at the level of commanders and adjutants. Captains like Wang Ling didn't know many people, so they were happy to relax. Ahem, have you come a lot? While the generals in the base were talking to each other, a person suddenly walked out of the general headquarters. As soon as he made a sound, he interrupted the conversation of everyone present, and they all followed the sound and looked over. Wang Ling also turned to look, and was shocked when he saw it, because the person who came out turned out to be a coach. Some book friends in the comment area are asking about the group number. The previous reply was blocked by the system last night. The reply was blocked again. Let me tell you about it here. The group number is 469.760.074. There is no V group set up as long as anyone who is a book lover of Three Wolves can enter. However, there are very few water groups, and there is not much publicity. It is a bit dull, so you need to be cautious when joining the group.